Ready? Here we go. I got a little introduction for you. Welcome, first of all, to the 2018 Retailer Summit. We know that it takes time out of your stores to come and do an event like this, so really happy you could make it. I think you're going to get a lot of good information. You're going to get a lot of really good information from these guys, the pop-up stores and the sidekicks. First little bit of business is in the program guide, Brad Bankston from Austin Books was going to be sitting to my left. He came down with the flu, so in honor of the first week of baseball season, we got a pinch hitter here, and we got Steve Underfirth, who is going to join us and share some of his information. He runs 4 stores in the St. Louis area, 3 across the river in Illinois. One is Star Clipper in St. Louis, which a lot of you guys know Star Clipper, and he kind of saved it after it was going to close. He bought into it. The other gentleman is Neil Kotler. I have known Neil for 28 years now, which is really scary. It means one of us is really old, if not both. He started Planet Comics back in 1989, and he's kind of our chameleon. He goes through a whole different range of businesses as different trends come up. He went from comics into more of a manga anime style store. He did that for many years. Now he's doing a toy collector's mall concept, which is really good. And what you're going to hear today is really what he's been successful at, is doing the pop-up store as far as the Christmas type setting, a 3-4 month idea that he sets up in a mall on a temporary lease basis. And you're going to find out how these two sidekick and pop-up store things kind of overlap a little bit, but at the same time they don't necessarily, because the product lines can be vastly different. Again, you're going to hear the sidekick is going to be more of a trying to get rid of older product, over-ordered product, whereas the pop-up store is going to be more timely, trendy, and things that you really want to bring in to make money on. So I know we got a lot of veterans here of the summits, so thank you guys for coming back. And I also know we have a lot of first-timers, and we're all here, including myself and all the Diamond staff, but these two guys as well. If you have any questions on how the summit works and where to be and that sort of thing, please ask us. I know it's a little daunting, and especially today is such a long day, so we'll be happy to give you some tips on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the experts here, and probably start out with Steve, and we'll start out with kind of the sidekick story.
So it's a pleasure to be here. Also know that if there's any questions throughout this conversation, I think both Neil and I were we're open to questions whenever you have them, and maybe pointing out different things and that. Part of what Brad does in Austin, what he was going to present, is he actually has a sidekick store right next to his regular store. He's actually got 3 stores kind of together under one roof and that. And so he was going to talk about how that sidekick started and what the value of it is. So he sent me some notes, so I kind of have his ideas, what he was doing. For us in St. Louis at Fantasy Books, Inc., the 4 stores we have are kind of different and unique. They're further apart from each other. They're a comic and a gaming store, and we sell a lot of pop culture in them too. So I don't have any real experience with setting up a sidekick as far as a store next door that's a clearance store or something to that effect. I do have experience in setting up at, we have a toy show that comes every 2 months, so we go set up a booth there. It's kind of like a convention, a little bit different, but just that idea of getting rid of merchandise or being able to move extra merchandise. The idea of a sidekick store is basically that. You know, there's 2 ways of ordering. Either you order too much or too little. And if we could get it right all the time, we wouldn't be here or whatever. We didn't know what to do. And that the problem is what to do with all the stuff that we order too much. My favorite kind of story about that is my dad would visit the store every once in a while, and he goes, "What are you going to do with all the comics in the back room?" And I want to say, well, I want to sell them. You know, obviously, and he's just like, you know, the idea is that we'll probably all have things or items in our stores that we need to move. If it's one of those leftover from assortments of toys that we've opened up, or because we've had to order a case and we sold all but 1 or 2 of them. With comics, we always have extra comics. What do we do with them? And what do we do with that type of inventory? My awareness especially is really true I've gone to a couple gaming conventions and retailer workshops, and it's the same thing. How do we move product that becomes stale? What's the lifetime of a product, and then how do we move it? And the idea of a sidekick would be that you can actually set up a physical location to invite people to come in, that you can really look like you're offering a bargain and you're not taking away from your regular store. That, you know, that people don't come to expect clearance and sales at the regular store, but they know there's an opportunity once in a while for something that could be good. And then that's the idea of a sidekick store. I think for Brad, you know, he was able to actually make it work in terms of being open all the time. For us, in our stores, we've created kind of a sidekick, if you will, within the store. We've recognized, we've gone through with our POS system and see what stale inventory is. You know, it hasn't sold for 6 months to a year or more in that, and trying to clearance it out. So we have like a tiered section where we created its own section for clearance. And the first, like when things enter that item the first time, they're at the topper tier, they're not at a great discount, and then we try to keep, you know, over time, trying to just move it out and get rid of it. It's really worked well for us in trying to clean out our inventory. The idea really is how to figure out how to move that and get rid of it so that it's no longer costing you more money just to keep it in, and being able to make sure your store is fresh and you're able to merchandise well the new material that keeps coming in. It's just the idea of the pop-up store, kind of giving you that idea. I think I'm going to let Neil talk a little bit about.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Neil Kotler. I own a store in Phoenix called Collectors Marketplace, and I also do a lot of conventions on the West Coast, as well as my pop-up stores. So a lot of you already are doing some conventions, especially close to your stores, because it's an easy way to get extra cash. We all know that. So what a pop-up store is, to take it to the next step, to take advantage of a season or an event. I mean, obviously Christmas, but it even could be the Super Bowl coming to your town, or it could even be Halloween. What I usually do is I go to a major mall or power centers, things with large anchors, a lot of traffic, and if they have empties, you contact the leasing agent, see what's available. It's a pretty standard practice for most larger companies. They like to have their space full, and rents really vary. It's very regional, but it really can be very profitable, and it can be a great store driver. It's like having a billboard in a mall for your shop, where you can actually talk to people and show them your product and introduce them to it. We usually do some sort of promotional flyer, come to our main store, get this discount, and it's kind of blown me away how people will take the next step to your store. You know, like just as they said in the breakfast this morning, you know, they're doing the promos for Comic Shop Locator before all the panels. Well, that's great. But what's nice is at the malls, is that you're getting people that are seeing Black Panther, they're seeing Avengers, they're seeing all these movies, but they don't know a comic store exists. I mean, we all are into this stuff, so we're very aware of it, but for some people, we're off the beaten track. So it gives you a great opportunity at marketing. And as far as sales go, it's Christmas time. People love spending. If you think sales are good in your store, well, try taking your hot product and moving it into a location temporarily with a lot of foot traffic, and you really can profit. I'll get a little deeper into some of the mechanics here, but it's something that I think everybody that has a little bit of a budget and, you know, inventory should consider. In some states, there already are people doing it. It's really hard to get locations. In my own state, I've got one person I'm always fighting with over locations. But if you have an area that nobody's really doing this, you might find it to be a good opportunity, as opposed to, like, let's say you want to get into a new area, you're thinking about opening a store. Well, how about taking a 3-month over the Christmas season at a mall nearby, seeing what the people are like. It can give you a really good feel without the obligation. So,
Neil, who are the people you mentioned that you're kind of fighting for space, and then what are the malls that you would recommend going into?
At least on the West Coast, we got Go Calendars. They should pop up in all the malls. They sign temp leases. It's a good business because they work with these calendar companies and do returnables. And they've been doing it for years, but over the last 5 years, they've started getting the pop culture. So much so that 2 years ago, I had one open up next to me, and I went to go into my store, and I'm like, why is there a giant poster of Funko Pops in the window next to me? It's because the calendar store is selling Funko Pops. And they're selling Magic the Gathering, and they're selling Star Wars figures and Dragon Ball Z, et cetera, and they're selling the best-selling board games, you know, Ticket to Ride, Catan, all that stuff. And that is happening all over the country.
But you can react to that.
You can. I mean, because the thing is that those are franchises. They're run by people that don't know their product. They're pre-picked assortments. So, like, for example, I mean, I do a heavy business in pops, and so, you know, the store next to me had maybe 100 pops, so I put in 1,000, and we basically crushed them because we had the inventory for it. You know, do you have? The answer should always be yes. You know, I mean, come Christmas, do you have Black Panther merchandise? Well, you can buy that or that. I mean, we all know all this, but those the competition's going to be companies like that coming in and trying to grab dollars. Hot Topics. I don't know if you guys all have box lunch by you now, but that's a new concept store that's popping up, and it's getting a lot of the casual dollars. It's getting dollars from your customers that happen to be at the mall and pop in the Hot Topic and get the Hot Topic pop. You know, we all know about all that. But this gives you a little bit of a way to fight back to it, a little bit of a way to, you know, I always have a Hot Topic near me, and I don't have Hot Topic exclusives, obviously. But what I do have is a lot more width. You know, I've got the Star Wars pops, or I have, you know, the, you know, all the different horror, like the It Pop came out and everybody sold 1 billion of those. So, you know, I mean, being in the business being already in the business gives you a big advantage because you know what sells. Those corporations, they've got buyers, and they're really, if you go into a Hot Topic in Seattle or San Francisco or Chicago, they're all going to be exactly the same. So you just kind of have to work around that a bit and figure out how do I sell to somebody at the mall that knows that the Hot Topic is there already. So
Very good.
you know.
I think one of the things, and you know, you can say too, that when we were talking last night about this, a sidekick, the idea of a sidekick is that you have extra inventory in your stores already, or in your warehouse, or in the back room that you want to get rid of. And so a sidekick is an idea of being able to get rid of and liquidate some dead inventory to turn it into cash. Where a pop-up store would be more trying to get what's popular and
it's a best of. Think of one way I describe it as, we all want to get, you know, comic conventions have, you know, you're the Comic-Con and you're like, look at all these people, I want them at my store. But a lot of them, there's a certain amount of people that just, like, you know, like I was saying before, they're just not wired that way. But if you can put it into a more mainstream environment, they can wrap their brains around it, and that could be an introductory point. You know, comics sell fairly well for me, mainly graphic novels, of course, but there's a lot of grandma, you know, it's like, you know, grandma wants to buy comics for the grandchild, but grandma does not necessarily go to the comic store, and grandma doesn't necessarily feel comfortable in all comic stores. Not to say there aren't stores that are definitely very, you know, family friendly, but then we have our stores that, you know, maybe have some edge to it, and those are definitely good stores as well. But for grandma, you know, do you have any Superman? Yes. Here's a bunch of graphic novels. You know, Walking Dead. Here's a bunch of graphic novels. You know, they're really good drivers for what I call the monthly floppies. You know, a good introductory point.
So how do you start this? I mean, how do you get to the leasing agent? How do you go through all the steps of, you know, you decide, I think I want to try this. How do you
Well, the
make
first
it
thing I
happen?
do is kind of like, I scope out locations, take a look at malls, see if there's empty spaces. If they're all full up, you can try, but that means they're in high demand. And if they're in high demand, then you're going to pay high rent. Ideally, you find a place that has a little bit of empties, because that means it's a good mall, but they still want to get full up for Christmas. Usually, for a seasonal lease, they'll want a minimum of 2 months. Nowadays, they're wanting 3 months or 4 months. This past Christmas season, I did October 1 through December 31st. And it's fine. The non-season time, basically, you kind of have to look at as a break even and preparing for the Christmas. And then Black Friday comes and boom, you're off to the races. I mean, it can be really healthy depending on where you're at. Location, location, location. But you don't have to be in a high-end mall either. I've been in the highest end mall in my state. I mean, I was 2 doors down from Louis Vuitton, and I made less money than I did in a low to middle income mall. So it doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, fancy per se. You want foot traffic. You want people coming in and out, because what you're selling them is you're selling them pop culture. You're selling them that movie. You're selling them that TV show. You know, it is, but, you know, as far as product goes, you don't want to get too esoteric. You need to stay real popular, real pop culture, real what's in people's faces. Your store is the place to sell indie product or to sell, more horror-oriented and of that nature. Here, you're selling stocking stuffers. You're selling Christmas presents under the tree, and you're selling to people. And the majority of your income is going to come from people that are not. They're not that deep. They're just not that deep. This store is like a Circle K or 7-Eleven compared to a regular shop. You know, you've got the stuff that people need at that time, and they grab and go. You're not trying to, you know, you're going to be gone in 3 months, and you might move to another mall. So you need to take that time to make as much money as you can, drive as many people to your store as you can, and then you're done. And then there's next year. As far as, you know, going back to the leasing part, the best thing to do is when you do find a place that you're interested in, contact the leasing agency, try to find the agent for that location, and it really helps to try to create a good, positive relationship, because you're going to get a lot of, well, we do temp leasing, but we're not ready to do it yet. And then you have to follow up. Are you ready to lease yet? Well, no, we're looking for long-term clients, because they really don't want to rent to you. They want to rent to a long-term client. They want somebody who's going to sign a 3-year big money lease. But when it comes August, September, October, and they know that they're not going to fill that space, they want their mall full. When people come, not to see empties. That is how most centers are. I've been in indoor malls. I've also been in discount power centers. They're all good. It's all about, it comes back down to foot traffic. Even I mean, talking about like sidekicks or, you know, an extension pops, even the state fair comes to town, you know, you can actually negotiate with them and actually do a setup at the state fair and things of that nature. Those things are good to look into. Help me out here, Tim. I'm going off.
Well, I'm actually going to kind of do a tangent a little bit. You guys have all seen, we've offered you the spinner rack that we came up with. We had it produced specially really for you guys. And it's a little pricey at $300, but it does include freight. And I think this actually could work a little bit with what these guys are telling you, because you could start small. You could, you know, you might have a pizza shop, you know, down the road from you that you know very well, and you eat lunch there 3 times a week or whatever, and you think, hey, guy, can I put in a spinner rack, and you know, you can share in the profits, and you can put trades in there, or old comics or whatever you think might move. So I think this actually could be a golden opportunity to start small into either a sidekick or a pop-up, because you could do this in a bunch of different businesses if it's working for you. And if you want to check out this rack, we actually have it in our booth at the little trade show area here that you guys will be at in a few hours after lunch. You can see what it looks like. But I think that could be a good avenue too, as a smaller entry if you're not ready to do, you know, a full store sidekick or a full store seasonal like that. But anyway, just an idea for you.
How many people have done a sidekick store at all? Anybody out here? Or kind of? Okay. And then a pop-up store, anybody done a full pop-up store? So it's really new for all of us, kind of trying to understand what it is and how it could work. Sometimes I think for, like, when I look at my stores, some of the things that I think could work and we've tried is actually trying to find a section in the store. So not actually going off location to another place, for a sidekick store or to a pop-up store, but actually making a section in the store that is the sidekick store, if you will, for the purposes of clearing out inventory. And knowing how to stock it and making sure that you still merchandise it well and that it's stocked, but really looking to see what's old, what's leftovers, what's been dinged or damaged a little bit, but it still has some value. And then really trying to figure out how to price it, that it will move. And that I know for us, we've done different things, and not that we're getting into pricing, but when we try to clearance stuff out, we would do percentages off. But we find people really just like to know how much it is. Like, they don't want to do the math, that's too hard. And so we've just determined, like, just to make things differently, we'll do like $10, $5, $1 items in that. So just trying to make that specifically for that, just trying to get rid of that merchandise. And we've also found as we move books out of inventory that's been sitting there for a year or more, or statues or some of the toys, and cleaned up those sections, actually those produce more too. So it's not only cleaning up the store and selling that inventory that's no longer value, but it's also making it more profitable because we're able to move the better inventory and merchandising it better.
And one of the worst bills that you all have, other than freight, we won't talk about that, is a storage facility. We all have extra stuff. We all have to put it somewhere. We don't all have a lot of big back room space in the stores. So you're paying a bill on a storage facility. If you could, turn some of that money you're paying as a storage facility more into a location where you can actually sell product, very difficult to sell merchandise out of a storage unit. Much easier to do when you can get that product out and in front of people. So I would even recommend looking at that, maybe trying to reallocate those funds. Now, of course, you're going to have some hiring issues, and I'll let these gentlemen tell you a little bit about how you have to go about that with shops outside of your store, because then there's trust issues and money and all that good stuff. How do you do that, Neil?
I work a lot of hours, and so does everybody else that works for me. During the Christmas season, I ask a lot of my employees. I do bonuses after. I try to make them happy. Happy employee is a good thing. The problem, a pop-up shop is a great thing. There are some shortcomings. Number one is staffing. We're open from anywhere from like 10 to 14 hours a day. Those 14-hour days can be killers, because then you're looking at split shifts. We're asking people to work doubles. And these malls require you to be open all hours. So when you sign a lease, it's like mall's open from 9 to 10, you're open from 9 to 10. Hey, it's Black Friday, we're gonna be open all night. You're open all night. It's all contractual, they'll fine you. You show up 20 minutes late to open your store, maybe they'll give you one pass, but they're really, the mall management is happy to have you if you're a good tenant. If you break rules, they do not want you. I've seen this happen with other people that do these type of stores. When we've kind of bent some rules, we get our hand slapped usually. They're very concerned because they want you, you're representing them as well. You're representing their brand. They approved of you.
So you take some of your better employees so that they can be
Yes.
trusted to open on time.
And there's a certain level of dress code. Nothing crazy, but remember, you're selling to grandma. You don't want to scare her. You're selling, that's the idea. The idea is, it's your store can have a lot of personality. Your pop-up store should be about selling product, not making a statement. I'm talking purely from a business standpoint, making dollars. I'm not saying it should be generic. The merchandise speaks for itself. It's all, so colorful and exciting. There's really no need to put like a huge, you're in there for a couple of months. You're not trying to necessarily brand yourself,
So you're talking hot products and depth versus a whole wide range of products, one or two.
Whether it's a keychain, a plush, we do really well with the Diamond Select Banks, the Marble Selects, anything that's a good stocking stuffer. What moves good in your store will, like your best sellers will be even more best sellers in that kind of environment. you know, Harley Quinn merchandise, Deadpool merchandise, it all translates. People love that stuff. They will buy it. They'll buy the T-shirt. They'll buy the graphic novel, the keychain. You know, people come up to the counter and they're like, "Do you have any?" That's the question. I mean, you think you get it at your shops during the Christmas season at a mall? It's just crazy because people come in like they got the list, a piece of paper, and they're like, well, "Do you have any Naruto?" Or you know, and it's like, okay, yeah, we've got, you know, this and this and this. And so it's really important that your staff be knowledgeable, super friendly, super outgoing. You know, obviously, you know, because it can get hectic. You know, Christmas season, just like at your store, you know, when you're a register 6 people deep and people are holding a bunch of bags, you know, you got to manage that. People, you know, there's a lot of personalities get kind of amplified during the holidays when people are hectic. And so, you know, I mean, just like your store, quality staffing is just so important. You know.
So let's say you had success, but you have a couple ideas. I can do this even better next year. How do you make next year happen when you're a temporary?
So what we try to do is, I usually send the leasing agent a gift basket after the new year, lots of thank yous and politeness, and you want them to work with you. You want them to come back. Like where we're at currently, one of our locations, like we got locked down. Like we're getting first pick, which is awesome where we want to be at. There's been other malls where they won't even talk to us because they've got somebody else. Like I have a competitor, a friendly competitor in town, and we're always banging heads on the best locations. And one of them, I don't know what he did, but the leasing agent basically just told me to forget trying. And so, okay, guess no, I'm not gonna try anymore. Yeah, Arrowhead.
Nice.
Yeah.
We did have a couple of hands of people that have tried this before. Can anyone share their successes or maybe pitfalls on what has happened with you guys? I know there are a couple of people over here. Yes.
One of the big challenges we've had is we've looked at any kind of location has been exclusivity clauses, where we'll go in, we'll start negotiating, we'll start talking to a leasing agent, and when they list out what we do, there's 1 or 2 items where they're like, oh, well, you know, some of the malls are hot topic boxes out because they're in the collectibles. We can't go in there, we can't go in those spaces. So it's made it a little more challenging to find alternative locations to look at places to put up some of the smaller, you know, pop-up shops and like that. And that's been one of the big challenges. That's just how real estate laws say we are.
Sure. Now, have you found better success in the outlet malls because they don't have as much of
No,
that?
in fact, well, so, you know, every area is different. In our area, there's one company that owns 90% of the indoor malls. Thankfully, where we're at, there are no. So we can get away with it. But, so what I would suggest is try to find a workaround. Maybe there's a different company that's managing some other facilities that's worth asking, but those deals are not consistent with through every state. And I sympathize with you because that sucks that they have that, you know. On the other hand, it's something for people to think about that are in large shopping centers when they sign new leases too, because you don't want, you know, something similar opening up right next to you. There's so many game and comic stores are kind of doing this so much these days. I'm seeing a lot more pop up nearby each other, and it's not necessarily good for everybody.
Right. Any other stories, thoughts? Please.
With the impending Toys R Us disappearing from the landscape, do you think that might be this holiday a little better expansion? You'll open a pop-up, either in a kiosk or in a store?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a very exciting opportunity. I will tell you that. I will tell all of you that. We've all heard rumors, oh, they're going to open 1,000 KBs or whatnot. You don't know, but in the meantime, by the time, you know, July rolls around, if there isn't any confirmation on like a mass national toy store opening, it's not a bad idea to start checking around for locations. I mean, I'm even thinking myself about looking for spaces next to closed Toys R Us's or that are very visible towards the entrances towards those centers. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And also it's a great opportunity to pick up some quality employees too, because there are a lot of toy collectors that happen to be employees as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this could be the best time for that. That's a great question, because there's going to be a lot of toys that aren't sold. I mean, Toys R Us is crazy big, so I think it's a great opportunity for
all that
everybody
inventory is
here.
going to be gone by the time Christmas rolls around. It's going to be all gone. You know.
Yep. So, good question. Any other questions? Yes.
From your experience, the more the malls with the highest foot traffic, do they charge you a fixed rate for the space, for a kiosk space, or do they take a percentage of the sale?
Okay, so that's a great question too. So it depends on the mall. Most better quality, whether it's a mall or a power center or a discount center or whatever you want to call it, they usually have percentage rent. There's a cap usually. I've never found a cap under 25,000 in sales. So for instance, this last year, in a given month, any of my sales over 40,000 in the month, they take 15%, which is painful, but you're making money. Yeah, but the thing is, the leases are fairly favorable. You're not paying what everybody else in those malls are paying. I've had amazing deals and not some that weren't so amazing, but I mean, I paid rent anywhere from $2,000 a month to $8,000 a month, depending on the mall. But the $8,000 a month was for, you know, 2 doors down from a Louis Vuitton store. So I mean, you know, it was the rents at that mall were horrendous.
And was this for kiosks?
No, this is for actual. This is actual for inside full 2,000 square foot, 2,500 square foot store. Kiosks can work if you're focusing on just Funko Pops, or if you're focusing just on one
Like
thing.
Gundam or something. Right?
Yeah, but the problem with the kiosk is you have to staff it just like you staff a store. It's got to be. This isn't, maybe there are exceptions, obviously, but in my experience, most people I've known that have tried kiosks have been unhappy with them because they require a lot of management, a lot of upkeep, and they're kind of expensive. Per square foot, they're multipliers of what you're going to pay for an actual inline store.
What are kiosks usually, like a 10-foot square?
Well, it depends on the location. So a lot of malls have like pre-made kiosks that you actually have to like buy. I mean, usually they have got some sort of specifications. Got to be this color, this, and this. It's. I mean, with a permanent store, it's not bad. Usually you can get away with a temporary sign that's under $500. Usually they'll do it. You can use grid wall for fixtures. You can even use folding tables, but you've got to disguise them. So if you've got grid wall, I like what I do is I buy like banquet tablecloths like that are black, and then we attach them to the back of the grid, so it has like a nice black uniform look and doesn't have that temporary kind of, you know, appearance. Same with folding tables, nice quality tablecloths, but remember, you're only there for a couple of months, and moving out can be an actual beast if you do too much of a build out. You know, we bring in a couple of showcases. I use a lot of rolling racks, big fan of rolling racks. Like for Pops, I talk about Pops, but they sell. You know, we load them up on those racks, we pallet wrap it, and we roll it up into a truck. So this last year, we had a 3,000 square foot store, and we're out of there in 2.5 days. So it's.
I mean, the idea is to maximize profit, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you want to go as little that looks nice as possible to maximize your profit there.
I mean, people aren't looking at your fixtures. You know, you don't need to go too crazy with them. And most malls, even the best mall, they don't care what you do. But what's going to happen is the mall management will come by and take a look and say, is it neat? Is it clean? The end. That's all they care about. You know, no boxes in the aisles, no odd piles of product. You know, just a neat, clean appearance. That's all they care about. They don't want to see anything that looks that doesn't complement their mall, or you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's very reasonable. Their expectations are not crazy. They don't expect. And then the other thing I'll add too, if any of you guys decide to try this, is if you do manage to find a place and you're talking to the management, always ask if they have fixtures. Always ask. Sometimes there's stores that move out and leave all their stuff. Like this past year, we were able to grab a nice 10-foot counter and probably another dozen fixtures from a closed clothing store where I'm like, well, can we borrow them for the time? Well, let me check. And it turns out, yes, we got to borrow it all for free and leave it there when we were done with it. So never hurt, you know, asking never hurts.
Any other questions? Yes. It can, certainly, because there are times where you want to keep that completely separate. It could be a separate business, so it certainly can. We can check on that further,
Is
just
that
to
the
be sure.
expansion too? Is it looking for the programs?
Yeah, could even be part of our expansion program, which would be nice. Yes.
Any tips or ideas about capturing the consumers from a satellite or a pop-up store in the ongoing sales cycle later on in the year after it's closed?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of ways to engage customers. I mean, you can even do some sort of promotion. Hey, you know, if you like our Facebook page, you get right now, right here, do it in front of me, 20% off. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do. We do a lot of coupons. I find that we get a lot of carryover business during the actual holiday itself because the pop-up, I mean, my main shop's 7,000 square feet, so I carry a lot more there than I do at my pop-up. So if people say, do you have Godzilla stuff? I'm like, well, I got 3 Godzilla items here, or I got 20 back at the store, and that what gets them to drive over to the store.
That makes sense.
When it comes to the pop-up location, the one thing I'll add to is inventory is a tricky subject when the comic industry. We all know that leftover, you know, product is not, you know, not what we're looking for. But since you are trying to stock the best, it's not as risky. You know, if you have leftover product, you're going to have leftover A quality, B quality product that you can, you know, stock through in your store throughout the next coming months. You know, that's why I was saying you don't want to get, you know, you want to put a couple of Batman statues in there? Absolutely. Do you want to put in, you know, some smaller, less popular ones?
That was very politically correct.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that we are this industry has a very much an artist aesthetic to it, and then there's a business aesthetic to it, and sometimes they don't always cross over. And so when it comes to anything that's short term, you're there to make money, and so, you know, you can definitely introduce people to comic books, but there's nothing wrong with doing it however you all want to do it. But speaking as far as just trying to make profit, it's best to be a best of. You know, you're going to sell a lot more Batman stuff than you are going to sell a small press character. You know, some merchandise from them that moves not so fast in your store.
You like Grandma. Grandma doesn't really know the small press.
No. Grandma will buy Archie's, and she will buy Mad Magazine, and she will buy anything, you know, Wonder Woman stuff. Oh God, this Christmas Wonder Woman was amazing for us. Do you have Wonder Woman? Yes. What do you want? But you don't want it, the answer is you want to make it to the end of that season, and you want to, I mean, ideally, you know, you walk out the door with not a lot of product, but I can tell you that the day before Christmas is one of our best days. So we try to be as stocked as possible, you know, and then the leftover product, well, that becomes part of your long-term profit. But if you're getting this A-level, B-level material, your odds of moving it all out is very good. You know, it's like, oh no, I've got some leftover Deadpool stuff. You know, you sort it into the store. You know, that's.
But really, like to your question in terms of getting return customers, that's why you want your best staff at the satellite store who are talking up the original store or the main store and trying to drive people by conversation and by pointing out that there's more there to choose from. And that, so your satellite store is servicing grandma or whoever just wants something in and out real quick, but they're not going to be your customers at your main store anyway, necessarily. So the people that are like really want to shop and get that experience, as long as your staff is engaging them and talking up the main store, that's what return we've gotten.
Yeah, that's right. It's an opportunity. You're not trying to craft it into some, like, all of our stores reflect our personalities to a certain degree. It's best not to look at it that way. You know, drive people to your store. That's where they're going to have the experience. But, you know, first and foremost, you got to make that money, because they're very doable, but until you get your feet under you, you need to make sure that you're okay financially, because you're stocking a store, and it can be scary. You know, hey, I'm ordering $50,000 in product, and I don't know what's gonna, you don't know what's gonna happen. So that's why, like I said, I mean, don't think I'm opening don't think I'm opening a permanent location. A temp store has just got different aesthetics to it, you know.
To finish off that point and to bring us all the way back to Austin Books, Brad and his general manager make it a requirement for all their employees to mention the Sidekick store every time they engage with a customer. So that kind of answers the question a little bit, is you have to make sure that you're mentioning the Sidekick store, the pop-up store, or bring it back the other way. Anyway, I think that's about all the time we have. Thank you guys for coming. Steve and Neil, thank you. Quick hand for these guys.
Thank you, guys.